Hello, and welcome back to the Claire Codes channel. Today we have a funky, fresh intro. I have a new camera, yay! Shout out to the camera gods. I don't know what I'm doing or saying, but this is very exciting. So as you can tell, I'm excited. So thank you for joining me on this project. We are going to take on a news article from USA Today, specifically on the topic of Thanksgiving, which was 2 days ago, and we are going to make it into a beautiful scrolling blog format. It's going to be well designed and fun and interactive, and we're going to spice it up with a dash of JavaScript. So please stay tuned, and without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so let's look at what we are going to code up today. So this is our scrolling article. So as you can see, we have Ready for Thanksgiving 2020, and I'll show you for a second where I'm getting all this information from. And it's about the 8 things to do before Thanksgiving. As you can see, we just have 4 right here. I did not complete the article, but if you code it up and you feel, I'll include all the links in the description. So if you feel like continuing, please do. So here we scroll, and as you can see, these are fixed images. So they reveal the image underneath, which I think is really cool. And then if you look at the left nav bar, you can also see that as I shift to the next one, it changes as well. So now we are on 2, now we're on 3, and now we're on 4. And then there's also a smooth scroll. So if I click 0, it's going to go up, and it's going to smoothly scroll there. Cool. And we'll also read through some of this because I think it's an interesting article. So it's from USA Today. And again, it's all about Thanksgiving 2020, which for me was 2 days ago, and it's a holiday celebrated in the States. If you're not from here, maybe you'll learn something. Yeah. So let's dive into the code. And then I also have, basically I grabbed all of the images from this logo to this turkey wearing a mask from Google Images. So I'll show you how to grab those as well. And again, links will be provided. Okay, cool. So let's get started. I opened up my terminal, and I'm going to, from here, cd to my desktop. And then from here, I'm going to make directory, just like that. And let's call it Thanksgiving tutorial. That sounds good. And now I'm going to cd, I think I have something else called Thanksgiving. So I'm just going to Thanksgiving dash, and then I'm going to tab, it's going to autofill. And then to open my code editor of choice, which I'm using Visual Studio Code, I'm going to do the command code dot, and then it'll open up. And we are off to the races. So let's add first our index.html, and we are using HTML, CSS, so styles, I don't know what's with my spelling today, CSS, and then JavaScript as well. So we're going to have an index.js. So let's get started. In our index.html, since I'm in Visual Studio Code, I can just do exclamation point and it'll autofill. So let's first change the title. Let's give it the title USA Today Scrolling Thanksgiving article. Very specific. And now let's link some of our stuff up. So we want to first grab our CSS. So I'm going to make a link tag, and let's do rel. We need to call it a style sheet, and then href, and let's find it. So there we go, /styles.scss. And then let's start off our body. So we're going to start off with a container div, and then let's not forget to link up our script. So our script is going to be script, and we want to get the source, which is /index.js. Let's close the script tag, just like that. Okay, so yeah, just like I said, this is going to be the class of container. All right, and let's look at what we need. So we know we're going to have this side navigation, which is going to have a logo and then a nav, and we're going to break this into an unordered list to get all of these list items. And then here we need a container. I'm not going to inspect it. Let's just break it down this way. So we know this box is one container. This is going to be its own container. This is going to float to the left. We're going to set a defined width, and then we're going to have a header, subhead, the description, the body text, and then a button to learn more, or an A tag in this case, because it's a link. And then we also know we're going to have this image fixed. And so we're going to break this down. For us, it's going to be 5 different sections. And then each of these are going to have an anchor tag, right? So we're going to have them each be links that attach to a ID. And that's how the anchor tag works. And we'll go through this further. Okay, great. Let's go back here. So let's start, like I said, with the sidebar navigation. So let's make a div here, and let's give it a class of sidebar. And then within sidebar, we're going to have a div with an ID logo. And we're going to use ID here just because it only appears once, whereas our classes, and it's good, sometimes you can name things classes, but sometimes like with logo, it makes more sense to be specific. We just have one logo. So within sidebar, we know that we're going to have our navigation. So let's call that nav. And now let's start our unordered list. And let's do our LIs, and let's give this a class of links. Then within here, we're going to have our A tags, which are going to anchor to the IDs. And I'm going to give this a class of smooth scroll. And this is because we're going to target it in our JavaScript when we get there to add the smooth scroll ability into a function. Okay, great. And then I'm going to give this an href. This is the first title sequence, so I'm just going to call it title. Actually, let's call it opener. That is more specific. So this is the opener, and let's give it 0, 0. Okay, cool. So let's just copy this, and we're going to paste it 4 times. 1, 2, 4. Sweet. Okay, so we have opener. The next one I know is going to be travel. And it's about, it's COVID. We live in the midst of a pandemic, so if you can avoid traveling, please do, for the sake of yourself, and you can also, not have symptoms and still spread. That's my little spiel. Okay, so we have travel. The next is, since we can't travel, Zoom's giving is, just a reality. Then this article goes a little into the history. While it is, a holiday here in the States, it is also a day of remembrance for the Native American population. And then in the past, this isn't the first pandemic that's hit the world. There was a Spanish influenza, and that also hit during Thanksgiving. Okay, cool. So, and now let's change these numbers. 01. Let's give this 2, 3, 4. Sweet. Okay, and now let's actually open this up. So I opened up the folder here, and then I can have this open as well. And I'm just going to drag the index so we can see what's going on. And as you can see, we have our unordered lists with our numbers. And they're still links, but they're not doing anything. Except for you can see the hashtag at the top changing, which we know it's working. Okay. So now let's see where this closes. We still want this all to be within our container, so let's give some space so we can see what's going on. And now let's start with the first section. So we're going to call this the header section, or the opener. I'm going to make that a comment. And we know that we called it opener here, so we're going to have our first div with the ID opener. And then within here, let's make a div with the class of content container. And a lot of these are going to repeat because each section is going to be a content container. And then within here, let's start off. So, let's give it actually one more thing, another class of content. This probably is an unnecessary class, but definitely be wary of how many divs you add. I'm just adding it in so that we can further control the content within. Okay, great. And let's get started with our content. So we have an H1. Let's go back to here. So the first thing we have, this title is Ready for Thanksgiving 2020. I just want to see. Yes, so I just grabbed that part. I want to see where I cut it off. Cool. So then I'm just going to copy this, go back to my code, paste it in. And let's make this a class of header. It's always good to give H1s any tags. It's good to give them classes like signifiers as opposed to just grabbing them directly. However, if you know all your H1s are going to be the same, like feel free to just call it out. This is just like certain people's convention. It's totally up to you how you want to run your document. As long as it's clear and clean code that someone else can read, that's what is important. So class, let's call this the subhead. And let's go back to this article. Make sure you do these 8 things before Thursday. Okay, cool. And yeah, and let's do our let's do an H4 because we know this is going to be a lot smaller. I'm just going to grab this guy's name, give him credit. Cool. And let's do a little spacer there. Make sure that's all lined up. Sweet. And I have a formatter on, so as you can see, it just auto formats for me, which is awesome. And let's give this a class of attribute. We're attributing it to Wyatt. It's a cool name. Okay. And then let's make a P. Let's give it the class of body because it's our body text. Let's actually be more specific. Or in this case, we're doing capital. Okay, cool. Body text. And let's just grab all of this text. And let's paste that in there. Ooh, did not want it to go within the P tag. Okay, cool. All right, so let's read this. It's that time of year. Thanksgiving is Thursday. Definitely feel free to skip this if you're just here for the coding. And like most holiday celebrations in 2020, it's going to look different this November. Public health officials are warning Americans about the dangers of travel and gatherings as the coronavirus pandemic rages. Stores nationwide are closing their doors Thanksgiving Day. While families finalize what recipes they'll enjoy together, perhaps virtually, many Indigenous people will commemorate the 50th National Day of Mourning, amid overdue need of being honest about the holiday's true history. There's a lot to do in preparation for Thanksgiving 2020. If you're feeling overwhelmed, never fear, we've got you covered. Here's a list of things to do as we approach Thursday. Okay. And then let's just grab this whole article here. And we are going to now have our little button. So let's break out of this P tag. Let's do A, href, boom. And then, let's have it open in a different window, I guess. Yeah. Target equals underscore blank. And then within here, let's make this our learn more. Let's save that up. All right, cool. I think we can look at, right now, we're going to make that a background image, this image here. So we're not going to see it right away because I just put that. But it's starting to be a thing. I think let's get into styling it up a bit, and then we'll move on to copying the section over and over and over. All right, so let's jump into the styling. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get our font families, which we're getting from Google Fonts, and I have Roboto selected at 400, and then Roboto condensed at 400 and 700. So now I'm going to just grab the import. I can also use the link in my HTML, but the import can work directly in the CSS. So I have my CSS pulled up next to the index HTML. Let's give ourselves some breathing room. Beautiful. And let's paste that in. So we have the import. And now I'm going to select the body. And I'm going to reset the margin to 0. And then let's go back here. Yeah, then I'll just do font family. And the first family I'm going to do is Roboto, comma. And sans serif, this is just you sometimes define a second typeface, or in this is like a family, just give it a sans serif font if Roboto is not within that client. For example, say Internet Explorer does not have capabilities to grab Roboto, a sans serif would be in its place. And then let's give the overflow X hidden. Cool. And now we're going to select everything, and we're going to give it box sizing of border box. And this just is to include all of the padding and the borders within the dimensions of our div. All right, let's jump into our first styling of a tag, and we're going to go straight for the H1, which we called header. And this I want to have a font family of Roboto condensed. And again, let's just have our secondary option of a sans serif. And then I want all of the headlines to be text transformed to uppercase. And then I'll give them a font size of, let's try 5.8 EM. And EM is similar to pixels. It's just a different measurement system. And you can find the exact pixel to EM ratio. That's actually a really good question. I want to say it's like around, convert 1 pixel. Okay, so 1 pixel is 6.25 EM. So 16 pixels is 1 EM. That makes sense. Cool. And then let's do margin of 2 REM. So that's 32, and this is responsive EMs. 0. And we want this to be the boldest weight. So I'm going to give it 700. Let's decrease the letter spacing, so the space between the letters makes sense. -4 pixels. Cool. Actually, I'm going to make this a little smaller. Let's go 3.6. Let's save that. Let's see what's going on so far. We can X out of this. Let's refresh our page. Boom. All right. And then we can also inspect here. And we can click in on the title itself, because maybe that letter spacing is a little too much. So what would it look like if it was -2? I like that better. So let's go back here. So this is, sometimes that's the way I do it, just to like visualize as I go. Okay, so we have the header done. Now let's move on to the subhead. And let's see. So I think this looks fine. Yeah. So I just want to give it a defined width so that it always stays within this area and it doesn't just all go in one line. So let's give it a max width of 300 pixels. Okay. So now we're going to do something interesting with the paragraph tag. So I think I think that's fine. The H4 size looks fine to me. So for a P tag, our paragraph tag, as you can see, there's this decoration here. So what we can do is we can target the copy before and give it this decoration. So before you have the paragraph, do this decoration. And I'll show you exactly how we're going to do that. So let's first go copy. And we want this to display block and float left. And let's also give it a line height of 1.5. And now we're going to select the copy before, and we're going to give it an empty content. We want it to display block. We're going to give it a width of 100 pixels. So we're defining the width, and we're going to define the height, and we're going to give it a background color so that it forms that rectangle. So we'll give it a height of 4 pixels and a background color of black. Let's give it a margin as well, bottom, and a margin right. So we're going to do, not margin, block, bottom of 20 pixels, and a margin right of 20 pixels as well. And we also want this to float left. Cool. It knows. And we're going to give it a position of relative and define the top of it as well, 6 pixels. And let's see what's going on. I was like, wow, we already did so much. Did not like that. So for some reason it did not take. I saved it. Oh, we called it body text here. That makes a lot more sense. Thought we called it copy. And I even spelled copy wrong, so it wouldn't have worked anyway. So always check your work. Let's see. Beautiful. So we have our little decoration. I like. Okay, cool. So now let's move on to selecting the whole content. That makes sense to me. Yeah, so we have all our text selected. And now let's do content. Let's give the whole content section a padding of 50 pixels and a min height, because we want this to take the whole height of the page. So we're going to do 100 viewport height. And now let's select the whole container. And let's give this as well, just for extra measure, a min height of 100 view height as well. And min, I guess just a width in general. We could do width, min width, a width of 100 view width. Cool. I don't think much should change with that. All right, I think let's move on to the sidebar next. Cool. Yeah, well, we definitely look at the padding. And we still have our learn more button down there. Great. All right, so let's select the sidebar. That is indeed what we called it. Yes, okay. Sidebar. Just double checking. Let's give it, we want it to always be present in a fixed position. So position of fixed, because we want it just to stay like glued there. And let's give it a width of 80 pixels. We want it to have a height of the full 100 view height. Background color of, I'm going to do this nice gray. And then I'm also going to give it a little bit of texture. So I have this bar here, and see it has the texture. So I'm going to copy the image address. And I'm going to go background image URL and paste the URL in. Save that and let's see what's going on now. Boom. So we have the start. And as you can see, we're definitely going to have some margin on our container so that it doesn't overlap. But it's coming into fruition. It's starting to look like a thing. Okay, cool. Let's work on our little logo next. So we used, let's go back up so we can see exactly what's going on. All right, so we have an ID for our logo. So we're going to do hashtag logo. And we want this to have a width of 100%. Let's give it a height of 80 pixels. Background color of hashtag D93732. And also I know I'm going to have a background image as well for this. And I'm going to give it this image. So let's copy this guy. And let's do background image. Again, a URL. And paste that in. And let's give it a background size. 100%, 100%. Let's save that and see what's going on. Refresh. Yay! We have a little turkey. So let's continue styling up our navigation. So below our logo, let's select nav ul. And then within here, I don't want the bullets, so I'm going to do list style none. And then let's give it a little bit of padding. So let's give the top a padding, top and bottom padding of 20 pixels, and left and right of 0. And let's align the text center. Cool. And then let's go a little deeper. Let's go all the way into our A tag. So I'm going to select nav, ul, li, a. And let's give each of those a color when they're not active of 666. Let's go all the way 6 places. And then a font size of 1.3 em. Let's also, pretty sure it's already going to be aligned, but just double center it. And then we want to give it a text decoration, so no underline of none. And we want it to be font weight of 700. And let's grab from our header, we want it to be the condensed weight. Let's go back down here. Boom. Okay, cool. Then let's see. I actually want to give this the class of button. And while we're here, let's also style up our A button. So let's go back down, A. So if you want to select within a class within a tag, you can do A and then dot button on one line. So let's give that, I want it to be a special red. I think I already have it, yep. And then font size of 1.5 em. And let's give that button border bottom. Oop, not block. Now I did Command Z to undo that. 4 pixels, solid, that same red. Cool. And then also a text decoration of none, because it is an A tag. And then I also want this to be roboto condensed. Let's give it 700 as well. And let's float this so that it's always on the right. And margin top, 50 pixels. I want it to be uppercase. I think that's all. So let's see what we got going right now. Okay, already liking this navigation much better. And right now we don't have any of this hooked up because we just have one section which is connected to the opener. Okay, so from here I also want, we're going to add an active class later on. So I just want to define this within our style sheet right away, just so we have it on deck. So I'm going to make the active color white once we get there. I think we're ready to move on back to our images and our content container. Let's make sure that's what we called it. Yep, content container. So let's just grab that. I'm going to give this a max width of 650 pixels. And I do want the full, it to take up that full max width. So 100%. And I want the background Am I spelling? Nope. Background. It's interesting that it doesn't come back. Background color to be this special color. F8, F8. Cool. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a gray color. And then a min height of 100 view height. Padding left of 80 pixels. And this padding will move it away from our side navigation. And I also want this whole section to float left. And I'm going to give it a special background image. So I have this here, and again, all the links. So I'm going to do copy image address to get, and you always want, when you're using an an image, you always want to copy the image address, because that's what's going to give you a like JPEG, or no, I don't want source. I'm confused for a sec. URL. So as you can see, this one's a PNG. So you always need your images to end with a signifier, like JPEG, PNG, and then if you're adding SVGs, that's a little different. Okay, so we have our content container, and within here, we have content container, and I haven't added the image container yet. So, okay, let's grab that. So we want that to be within opener for sure. Yeah, okay, cool. So below here, I'm gonna give a div, and I'm gonna call this image container. And then within here, let's make another div, and this is where our background image is gonna live. So I'm gonna give it a class of image, and this is the header. So we want to be more specific, the header image. Let's see what's going on right now. Okay, something. Oh, I haven't saved this in a bit. Cool. Perfect. So now as you can see, we have enough space. Loving it already. Okay, that looks great. Let's end at true history so it doesn't go. Let me just double check what's different here. Or doesn't go below the 100 view height. Perfect. All right, so now let's target our image. Let's get rid of that bottomness. So I want the image to have a width and a height of 100%. And now specifically, I'm going to target image and header image. I mean, header image right now. So yeah, but through image. So image dot header image. That's what we called it. Yep. And I'm going to grab the background image. So background URL. Let's go for it. So I think it is this beautiful turkey image. So again, I'm going to copy the image address. I'm going to put it in. And then right after here, I want it to be top, right, no repeat, and I want it to be fixed. And that's what's going to give us our like little bit of an effect. And I want the background size to cover. Let's save that and see what's going on. Did I save it? Yes, I did. Did I save this? Yep. Okay, that's what we need. We need the image container to have a height. So let's go back. Oh, yes, I left out image container. Image container height of 100 view height. So our website's a little quirky in that it has to be like the full width to see the full image. And yeah, then it kind of disappears on mobile for sure. So that's something that we could definitely work on in the future because it is a fixed position, so it will hide underneath. But that's also makes it a bit responsive for sure. Okay, cool. From here, let's actually add some of our media queries because we've actually hit the basics. So I'm going to do at media, and I'm going to give it a max width of 500 pixels. Let's select the header. Let's give it a font size of 2.2 rem. And let's actually see what our line spacing is doing when I do that. Okay, so it gets, I think that's fine, the letter spacing. Let's select our body text before. Let's just get rid of that. Display, none. Image container. It does disappear, but let's just also display none. Bye bye, image container. Okay, and then let's make a smaller logo. Let's give it a height of 50 pixels. Select the content container, and let's give that a padding left of 70 pixels. Float. Don't need a float anymore. And content, let's do padding of 20 pixels. So we'll decrease the padding a bit. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, cool. So now let's add some more sections. So let's grab the whole thing from the header section down all the way there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So let's see, our first header section is this guy. So it closes there. So we want our next section to be the travel section with the ID of travel. And let's go back here. Boom, ba-doom. Let's go back to the article. Let's grab the header. Let's get rid of these two things. We do not need that. We only need that for the opener. And just for brevity's sake, just, if you want, you can put the correct body text, but we'll just leave this like that. Maybe in the repo, I'll make sure it's the right one. And, same thing here. You can copy the links. So this will open new USA article. So this would go here. And now let's make this the travel image. And let's go here. Travel image. And let's find our travel image. I liked this dude. It's also all the way to the right, like that's where he is. So that fits well with the way our images are all in there. So let's go like that. Let's see how this is looking. So if I click here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we'll play around with why that is happening. Okay, so basically the font size is too big, which is very odd. So let's give this a font size 3.3. Okay, interesting. So let's go back over here to our code. Let's go back to our H1, which we called header text. Let's give this a font size of 3.3. Let's refresh. Okay, cool. Much better. And now it all fits within one section. Cool. So basically our title was too large. All right, so let's go back here into our article. I think we don't want this one. We want Thanksgiving one. All right, so 2. Yeah, 1 was that. 2 is make the most of Zoom's giving. So below our travel section, let's make this the Zoom section. Let's just make sure that's what we called it. So we have opener, travel, Zoom. Correct. Zoom. Boom. Save that. And let's call this Zoom image. Zoom image. And I think that would be this guy. Copy image address. Paste that here. Save that. Okay, so we have zoom image. And then the next section, boop-a-doo, we have zoom, history, and past. Zoom, history. Thanks for bearing with my jumping around. So let's be honest about Thanksgiving's history. Don't want to select the paragraph. We want to leave that as is. Save that. And let's make this history image. Copy this dude. Paste that in. History. And let's grab the history. Okay, cool. And now this last section, we want it to be in the past. (1918). Save that. And let's make this past image. And boom. Let's check this baby out. Yeah, that looks great. So let's see. So see right now how it just jumps right there. Let's try to make it a smooth scroll. And also we want these to be active when we're on the section. So now we're going to jump into our JavaScript. Okay, so moving back to our JavaScript file, let's get this baby set up. So I'm going to move this side by side so I can see what's going on. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to grab all of our nav links, which we named smooth scroll. So let nav links, so we're defining them as a variable, and we want to do document dot query selector all to grab them all, and then our class dot smooth. One second, my microphone is in an awkward place. Okay, cool. Smooth scroll. Yep. Okay, great. So now we want to add an event listener, and this is for a scroll event. So we're going to do window dot add event listener. It's going to watch for a scroll, and then comma, and we're going to add our function. So we're going to use an arrow function, and then we're going to now loop through each link. So we're going to do nav links dot for each. So this is a singular link. And then we want to get each section. So we're going to define another variable. Let section equal document dot query selector. And this is kind of special. So what we can do is we can grab the link, and we're going to grab the hash of the link. So that's grabbing, for example, hash opener. Okay, cool. So that's grabbing the section. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the active classes, so that as we click, this is going to add the class active to O1 so that it turns the color white as opposed to gray. And then it's going to remove it when we move on to another section. So let's go back here. Okay, so below link hash, we're going to add if statement. So if section, and we're going to do offset top, and we can go into what that is. So if I look here, this is what we're going to do next. Offset top is the number of pixels from the top to the closest relatively positioned parent element. And they have some examples here. I can put a link to this, the MDN docs. If you're ever unsure of what something is, definitely check MDN or W3 schools. So we're going to get when it's less than or equal to, and then we want to define a variable as well. So I'm going to get let from top equal window dot scroll y. So the scrolling position, and then I did some just like gauging what was the best increment, and so 25 pixels seemed the best from the top to the top of our scrolling section. I hope this all makes sense. So from top, and then I think because it's 25 and the top has a padding of 80, we can also add 55. So if it is less than that, and the section dot offset top plus the section dot offset height is greater than from top plus 55. Okay, so we're saying if it's less than or equal to the section height plus that, or if it's greater than from top of the section plus 55. So we're capturing the whole space of the section here. So if this is true, link dot class list dot add the class of active. Cool. And then else link dot class list dot remove active. Cool. So now we've captured the active section, and yeah, this looks good. Okay, while we're inside of our event and we have the for each of each link, I'm going to also add in here an on-click event. And the on-click event, this is to add the scroll to behavior. And I also have an MDM doc about that. So it wants to grab the coordinate, and then there are options. So we can scroll to a specific coordinate, an element in position, and then we can add this behavior smooth. And so it's not going to abruptly just go to that section. So I'm going to do a link dot on click. And this is going to be another arrow function. And we want to prevent, we want to add an event here. And then select our event, e dot prevent default. Okay, and then we're going to let element position equal section. And once again, we're going to grab the offset top. And we're going to add our window dot scroll to. And it's going to take a top of element position, which we just defined, and it's going to have a behavior of smooth. Oop. Okay, cool. So let's check this out and make sure everything's working. Okay, so right away we see that this is active. This looks great. That's active. Boom. So as soon as we get into that section, it's active. And now let's see if there's smooth scrolling. Yay! It's working. Cool. Okay, So that's all for this episode. Definitely take a look at this article and read more about, Thanksgiving's history and, about the Spanish flu and what that was like for so many around the world and for our country or for these states. I'm not going to assume where you are in the world. I know I have many different viewers in all different locations, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for sticking to the end. I hope you learned something. I'm definitely going to put up the GitHub repository in the show notes, and I'll also add a comment with the GitHub repo as well if you want to check it all out. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye. And I'm on a roll.